I didn't say this was going to be a comfortable cosplay, alright? I didn't say it was. Sakizo is very well known for creating very outlandish cosplays that don't make sense. G'day everyone, and welcome to a new Breakdown Wednesdays, where I take cosplay designs that you've recommended to me and I break them down. And today, as it is our very last Breakdown Wednesday for this year, I don't know if it's coming back, this is a bit of a trial run, but I thought it would be wonderful to get into the festive spirit and do something Christmas themed. And that is Sakizo's Merry Christmas Girl Meet Sweets from 2017. Like many people, I love Sakizo and I love her artwork, and I especially love ones like this. Ones that are, baking, pastry, cooking, sweets, goodness, all of that sort of things. Things you wouldn't normally see in a cosplay coming to life. And I am so excited to break this one down. This one came very, very hotly asked by a number of people on my Instagram. So, shall we get cooking? And the first thing is, let's start with something easy. Let's talk about her wig. So the wig is quite a short wig with some curls coming down at the bottom with a braid coming across the front. This is something that you can certainly do, something that wouldn't be too hard to style, I don't think, especially if you got one that had especially a long fringe. I think that it's a very cute style, very easy, you can't really see the back, and that works to your favor because it means that with this braid, you could wrap it all the way around and pin it and secure it in the back. You don't have to have anything really fancy in the back. And then you've just got these curls falling down either side. So it's going to be a short, red-brown kind of wig. It's actually more like copper, which I quite like. And then you're going to style it with the braid in the front and also the curls on the side. And the fact that it's kind of flat on top and then the curls start means that it is going to be quite easy to style. It's when you're trying to get the curls to start right like up here that can sometimes get a bit hard, but with gravity, when you're doing curls, it's quite easy to kind of get it to start curling properly from like here down. At least that's what I found. All right. The reason why this is a short wig is because this big thing, which initially when you look at it, I'm just like, whoa, that is some hair. It's not. It is some sort of veil almost that is attached to the back of the hair. And this is probably the most chaotic part of this entire cosplay. Honestly, let's just do it now, get it out of the way, shall we? So this veil, it's been drawn as if it's just like flowing in the wind and it looks beautiful. Realistically, if you're gonna be true to this image, it's not going to be. And here's why. It is more like a canvas almost for all of these sweets that are glued onto the back of this. And yes, there's a lot of 3D elements to this cosplay. So when I say glued, I mean glued. It's not something like, oh yeah, embroidery and then like sewn on. No, I'm gonna say that all of these like sweets are going to be something that you're gonna sculpt out of foam clay, or have them printed off on a 3D printer, or create them out of foam yourself. Or if you really wanted to, you could do it in a whole lot of really cool resin pieces or something like that. But I think resin would be quite heavy. And considering that this is attached to your head, I would always opt for something lighter rather than heavier. Because of the fact that it's going to be attached purely to the back of your head and the wig. So I would do those out of foam clay. But in terms of the actual structure, I would really think very long and hard about this, but I'm going to go with my initial thought, which is I would make this out of fabric. I would create this out of essentially a lightweight fabric that is not sheer. I would create it so that it could cover a metal structure. So I would create this out of essentially wire to create the overall structure, and then essentially cover that structure with this fabric. And I would need to pattern in the kind of, it's almost like a pie crust. I think that's what they're going for here. To have this kind of pie crust folded over onto it. So you'd need to pattern it so that it's wider and then fold the wire in on itself to create that. It might even be that you create the structure out of very, very, very lightweight, like chicken wire. I know it sounds crazy, but every time I think about this, I think about, okay, what is going to be the easiest way to create that structure that's going to be light? And I keep coming back to needing something that has a really decent structural support, and chicken wire is just what comes to my mind. Maybe because that's what I grew up with my grandfather having chickens. I don't know. Maybe Christmas is bringing that out in me and just remembering about my grandparents. It was a big event in my household. Anyway, so for now, okay, and I'm happy in the comments for you to discuss what alternatives you would do, but in fact I encourage it. But what I would do is I would probably do some sort of chicken wire base, or just wire base that's then covered with fabric, and you manipulate that into shape. It also wouldn't hurt if you have like a base color of like a light brown to then do some airbrushing with fabric dye to create all the crevices and all the bits and pieces, all the details of that base layer. I think that that would look really, really cool. So maybe also do some airbrushing. Okay. The last thing I'm going to say in relation to this headpiece is this beautiful wreath up here. For this one, you can certainly get small wreaths already existing. They are all around come Christmas time, but failing that, all you would need to do is get some Christmas leafage. So Christmas leafage, okay, and then also include some berries as well, and create that into a circle. Add on the ribbon with the holly, because there's a little bit of holly right there with a bell. So, and then ribbon, bell, and holly. And honestly, for that one, I would probably do something like either putting it on a headband or a comb. Probably I would do it as a comb, to be honest, and I would secure that either onto the side of the wire structure, which you're going to have to find a way to like essentially put comb all around the top of that structure so that you can like thread it through into your wig, sew it into place, and make sure you've got some sort of wig grip on like inside your wig, and make sure that wig is really secure, because you're going to have all the weight of that veil essentially coming onto the wig. I didn't say this was going to be a comfortable cosplay, all right? I didn't say it was. Sakizo is very well known for creating very outlandish cosplays that don't make sense. And as cosplayers, we try to make it make sense. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. So that's how I would do the top part of this cosplay. Let's move down towards the base of this. So we've got these gorgeous boots with a tiny heel. So boots with small heel. Okay, honestly, I would get an existing pair of brown boots and then I would just make the alterations. Now, this is where it starts getting fun, because the laces up the front, I would do those as fake laces. I would, for just the ease of this cosplay and just kind of making sure everything looks fantastic, and because there are no ties in this boot, I would honestly do a side zip boot, and then I would create fake laces going up and doing this pattern. For these cool little like I guess they're like icing drops, they look like. How I would create that is I would create a tube of fabric, and I would use the same technique throughout the rest of this costume, but a tube of fabric in this kind of off-white color, fill it with tontine, and then go around and sew down along. And by doing that, where you sew, it will create these little bubble effects. And then from there, I would either, I would try to sew it onto the boot itself, or I would maybe have to relent and just glue it onto the boot with some very, very strong glue that works for fabric, attaching it to leather or faux leather, something like that. But that is exactly how I would do this. Make sure that with your boot, you do have this front section, that the toe is a light color. It's more of like a caramel color rather than a brown. So just keep that in mind as well. You might have to paint that. Then we've got these very lovely yellow stockings. You can either make them or buy them. I think Snag Tights have a really lovely yellow stocking. Shout out to Snag Tights, totally not sponsored, but I love Snag Tights, I really do. All right, let's move on to this crazy dress, and we'll start off with the skirt. So let's talk about the shape of this skirt first. It is like a bell, and how it looks like it moves is it looks like there is no support underneath that. There's no crinoline. It looks like it is shaped as a bell, which means number one, you're gonna have to pattern that out to get that shape. Number two, you need to create that shape. And honestly, how I would do this, and I can't believe I'm gonna say it, because every time that I do this, I regret my life choices. I would interline that, I would like interline it with buckram. So buckram, for those who don't know what that is, it is a type of material used a lot in handbags and hats. It is like interfacing, like stiff interfacing, but like 3 times as stiff as the most stiffest interfacing you can get for regular sewing. If you're going to create gravity-defying looks, then buckram is going to be a way to go. It is a bit of a pain to deal with, but it does loosen up if you do use a steamer, and then it does take on a new shape. You can mold it a bit, and then just let it dry in that shape, and then it will hold that shape. It happens all the time for hats and bags. Like I said, that's its main purpose. But it's probably a good idea that you work out where you need to put darts into it before you steam it and shape it as well. It is a bit tricky to sew with. I'm just gonna say that right now. I have this disclaimer right here, so don't come after me. The lining for this is this beautiful pop of red, which I absolutely love. I love a contrasting lining. It makes me happy. We've got the same sort of icing piping at the bottom. So we've talked about that piping being the piece of fabric tontine and then sewing it in intervals, so it looks like that piping effect. And that's probably going to be the largest version that you do. And then you've got this green fabric, and then you've got this brown caramel kind of one as well. Very similar, possibly the same as the fabric that you use in the veil. Let's talk about these sections here. So for the green, that's going to be essentially, I would probably just applique that onto this base fabric, which is the brown caramel kind of color. Now, all of these gingerbread men, Christmas trees, stars, and the lollies, I would probably just shape these out of foam clay again. I know, I love foam clay. It makes me very, very happy. And it just means that you've got these beautiful raised details. Honestly, you could even get cookie cutters. Get cookie cutters of these, get your foam clay, roll it out like dough, cut them out, put them on a baking tray, and let them dry. There you go. There's your detail. Done. And then obviously paint them up and everything like that. But don't get too bogged down with this. Sometimes you get lucky, and you can use kitchen tools for a kitchen-inspired look, and it all works out. The lollies, same as the lollies that are in the veil, so to speak. That's exactly what I would do there. Okay. Next, as we move up, we have got the kind of top layer of the skirt here, which looks to be this really cute off-white, possibly the same kind of fabric that you're using for the icing, and it's draped up. So you would create a skirt and then essentially gather it up around, so it creates these beautiful kind of ruching details. You have your stars. I would once again do those as cookie cutters, and then you've got a star on each of those. Would be quite nice if you have like if you do them as like a baked cookie, if for those stars, and maybe for the others as well. Oh, it could be really cool to just do like a light spray of gold. I just think that would work well with the cookie texture and would just kind of make it a little bit unique and interesting. I wouldn't do the whole thing as gold, just a light sprinkle of it. And then we've got the larger version of the bow with the holly and the bells as this one. So make sure that you've got the bow with bell and holly. Oop. Moving into the bodice now. What we have here is we've got a pretty standard bodice. Oh, before I do to proceed, I would say that the skirt, I would sew that separately to the bodice, and then the bodice is worn over the skirt. So for the bodice, what you would be looking at doing is creating a regular bodice. It doesn't look like anything too crazy. Probably you could do just a beautiful princess themed bodice. And then you've got more of that piping along the bottom here and up the front. You could also possibly do some at the back if you wanted to, if you've got some spare, or if you feel like you want to do that, go for it. And then you've got this cool kind of detailing down the front, which looks to be like piping again, but creating like these kind of plait heart kind of look. It reminds me of like a ribbed jumper that you might wear at Christmas if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. You don't wear jumpers down under in the Southern Hemisphere. It is way too hot come Christmas time. That is what I would do there, and I would sew that onto the bodice. Maybe add a few rhinestones here and there just to kind of make it sparkle a little bit. Just, hit in there maybe. It's Christmas time, you can add some sparkle if you want. So once again, we've got more sort of piping detail. And when I say piping detail, I mean icing piping. Icing piping detail. The sleeves are these gorgeous puff sleeves. Oh my goodness me. They are so, so beautiful, and they are quilted puff sleeves. So let me just bring this down here. So we've got some quilted puff sleeves. So that's white. You would need to pattern out your very large puff. It is a very, very large puff. So from the shoulder out, they almost look like they are 1830 puff sleeves. So if you want some inspiration, maybe look at the 1830s to kind of get an idea, because they've got like a dropped sleeve and then they go out. Honestly, I would just save my sanity and do the puff sleeve from here and go out, and maybe add a little bit of padding around the outside. So you could always do this red sleeve on the inside as a straight sleeve that goes all the way down. And then have the puff sleeve attached to that, so you do have that support and the padding inside. Definitely add some padding inside. And then we've got the red sleeves that continue, so red straight sleeves. And then we've got the finishing of the icing there. The last thing that we're going to talk about here, because we're not going to talk about the trumpet, because the trumpet, I honestly think get a real trumpet or get like a toy trumpet, or get something that looks like a trumpet. This just looks like a straight up normal trumpet. I don't think you necessarily need to try and make a trumpet and make it look realistic. Borrow one, get one secondhand, get a toy. If there's a 3D file somewhere to make a trumpet, I'm sure that there is. Print it out, paint it, all of that good stuff. Don't try it. Don't try and make your life absolutely miserable. But look, if you want to, go ahead, try and make it out of foam. I certainly would not. But let's talk about the cape. So this cape is so cute. It's so cute. So we've got the green that is in the bottom of the skirt. And this is what I love about Sakizo, is that she always designs with the colors repeating and the fabrics repeating. And I really, really like that because it is continuity. I always believe you should have something twice in your costume so it doesn't look like a mistake. And so the fact that she's brought this green back in from the cape and to the skirt, it makes everything look really, really uniformed. So for this cape, it is just a little capelet with a high neck. We've got a little gem here because she loves her gems. It's set in a cameo, and it does look like it has maybe a little tassel. So gem with cameo and like a tassel. It looks like a tassel. You might read that as a large bead, like a teardrop bead, but to me it reads as a tassel. We've got a little bit of, I would say that might be lace on the collar here, but you could do that as piping. She already has a lot of piping on her, but actually let's just continue it. Let's just say it's more piping, because with them we've got the piping on the side here. We also have some very large, it looks like it's large, oh, I'm wondering if that is more like very large piping, or whether the cape is cut away and into so that you can see the sleeves underneath. You could play around with that if you wanted to. I mean, it would be easier to do the kind of icing detail piping on top of the cape. But if you really wanted to be extra, you could always cut your cape away to join in the middle here, up here, and then obviously the piping that goes across the bottom of the cape, so that there's little holes for the undersleeve to pop out. That could be quite interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But you do have some details on here. It looks like there could be like a gem or something like that, a little cameo, don't know. But that could be interesting. Now moving on to the rest of the cape, the only other things that I would mention is that there is a little bit of a kind of fake chiefness here, like a little cravat, a fake cravat. So we've got some ruffles going into like a little fan coming down. You could be extra and put a bit of lace onto the bottom of that. Sakizo, I don't think would have an issue with that whatsoever. There is a lot of lace in her artworks, so you could certainly do that as well. Like I said, we've got some piping happening here, which looks like it's getting narrower. So let's chuck in something new, because that's fun. But we also have this gorgeous large piping going around the bottom of the cape, which obviously goes over the sleeves. Oh, I love those sleeves. But the difference is with this piping in the middle, where you would do the sewing join, we have all of these green little beads or rhinestones. So very important to make sure that you do either beads or rhinestones, and that will just tie, once again, the little bit of green that's within this cosplay all together. So in short, not really short, but that is how I would tackle this project as the Merry Christmas Girls Meet Sweet 2017 design. It is gorgeous. I love it. Now, let's talk about whether or not this would break me. I think that I could do this, but would I? Probably not. And let me tell you why. Because out of everything, the thing that would break me would be the weight of that veil. At least the way that I'm thinking of how I would make it, it would be as light as I possibly could make it to create that shape, but that would probably break me to wear that. I honestly would look at separating the wreath with the veil so that I could wear the wreath but not the veil. And that if I could do that, so I wasn't wearing the veil and it was just this beautiful cute little outfit with the little wreath as the headpiece, kind of like a fascinator almost, absolutely I would. Or I would do it like, I would do the wreath, but I would have like it as like a veil coming from the wreath that's just a small one, maybe like some chiffon with some little beads or something on the end, or rhinestones. That would be fine. But to have this volume and to have those sweets and to have them as 3D, I think that would weigh quite a lot. But if I could change that around, oh yeah, I would love to do this. I would absolutely love to do this. Even with the buckram skirt, I would love to do this. I think it's a very, very cute design. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching and thank you so much for tuning in for this 8-part series. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please in the comments let me know if you've enjoyed this series and if you would like me to continue in the new year. I've had a lot of fun breaking these down and I love reading the comments as well. So guys, make sure you like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I'll see you in my regular videos on Saturdays. Bye!